So in today's episode, we're talking about the things we had to unlearn in our 20s in order to be successful in our 30s. We're talking about some of the mistakes we made. We're talking about our origin stories as mothers. And we're also talking about the importance of friendship in motherhood and how our relationship with alcohol has impacted our friendships as well. So we hope you enjoy today's episode.
Welcome back to the Second Bloom podcast. I'm your host, Peyton, and I'm here with Charlotte. Do you remember kind of the first time we met, Charlotte?
The first time we met, Peyton, I will never forget it. I remember coming out of my house. I knew that you were going to stop by with your partner. I had never met you guys before, but my partner at the time had been telling me about you guys and ranting and raving, and so I was so excited to finally meet you. And I came out of my house and I was just like, are you kidding me? If she's not the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life, like, of course my partner never mentioned that. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I just knew right off the bat you had the best energy and I knew we were going to be best friends. And then like 3 weeks later, we both found out we were pregnant on very similar timelines, and it was over. I was like, yeah.
It was like it was meant to be. Mm-hmm. One, like, I was not convinced that you were a real person. And then when I finally met you, I was
say more about that, because I feel like that's confusing if you don't know the history.
A little bit of the backstory is my hubby was friends with your soon-to-be ex-husband.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. And then...
Well, he's my ex-husband now. I mean, but at the time he was my husband. I didn't know that we were going to break up.
Well, no. Right. No. Mm-hmm. But, like, we met over at an open mic night, and I met him, and we had spent a couple mic nights together, and he just dropped a bomb on us that he had a wife and 3 kids up in Northwest Territories. And he was just down here for work. And I was like, wait, what? Like,
you have a whole secret family?
Yeah. I was like, you don't peg me as the kind of dude to have a family and kids, right?
That's so funny.
Then he moved you guys down here, met you at the house, and I was not convinced that there was going to be a you at all. And then you walked out of the house, and I was just like, what the fuck? This woman's gorgeous. How did he get this?
Trickery.
It was trickery. But yeah, no, we vibed pretty well right off the hop.
We vibed, definitely.
It's crazy to think that that's been like almost 2 years ago.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep. It's been, 18 months, because my baby is just about 18 months now.
Yeah.
Is that right?
No.
Dang. No.
I met you in I want to say May of 24. No. April of 24. March of 24, maybe?
No, it wouldn't have been March. I was still up north. It must have been April or May. Also, I didn't know I was pregnant until April.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Spooky.
And then, we were living between Northwest Territories and here in northern BC, going back and forth. So and also, both of us being pregnant and having other kids to take care of, we only saw each other
very minimally,
kind of sporadically through the pregnancies. And then it was once our babies were born that we became
really close.
Way closer. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because for everybody listening, our babies are born a month apart, almost to the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a life hack. If you can find a local mom in your area who has a similar due date to you, within a month or so, just being able to bounce ideas off each other and know, okay, I'm going to go through that, or you're going through something similar. It makes it a lot
easier.
And just to have somebody who you can sit around with and just let the babies do their thing on the blanket and feel
it's not as isolating.
In the same exact phase of life. It really helps to feel less isolated.
Fun fact, that is the reason why women sync up.
Sync our cycles so that we can have babies at the same time.
Yeah, if you go back to tribal days, when we like gathered in tribes. That's why women would sync up, so that they would all have the babies together and you could raise the babies together. That's where the whole saying, like, it takes a village.
So much sense. Mm-hmm. And that's the first time I really had that. I had mom friends when my other kids were born, but I never had a friend whose pregnancy lined up the same as mine. And it made a huge difference in my postpartum. And it's also just really, really fun for your baby to have a little baby bestie who's about the same development. It's really nice.
It is. So. And that's funny that you say that, because I also never had like a mom friend with my other two. I was always so much younger than all of the other kids, or the other moms that had kids my age.
True. Right. Well, okay. So do you want to say like how old you were when you had your two oldest kids?
So I was a teen mom. I had my oldest daughter at 17. So by the time she hit school, the kids that, even before that, like nobody else at my age was having kids. Like it was just me, right? So I never had that with anybody. And then by the time my daughter hit school, those moms are at the stage I am now. Yeah. So there was always that divide. I had friends, but I didn't have friends that were on the same wavelength that I was on.
For sure.
Yeah, and then I didn't have my son until I was 20. So I was still quite young there as well. So I also didn't have any friends that were having babies then. It wasn't until I met you and had my youngest daughter 10 years later that I finally found a mom friend. That's the thing too, like that's probably why I didn't have the mom friends that I could have had when I was younger, is because one, I felt super judged, and it was just a little Akko Taco. So I didn't really talk to anybody. I didn't really start coming out of my shell until my late 20s.
Which I think we did want to kind of get into this episode a little bit of our origin stories and just kind of who we were as people in our 20s, and maybe there's something that others can relate to there, especially because you and I were very different in our 20s. So do you want to speak to like, what kind of girl were you?
Okay, so I had my first kid when I was 17. I did not really know myself. I tied myself down to her dad fairly early in life. Then we ended up having her brother. We got married and divorced all within the same year.
Oh my God, I didn't realize it was all within the same year.
Oh yeah, I was with him for many, many, many years, but only married for like less than 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like, as soon as I realized that this was my life, I was like, no. And I ran as fast and as far as I could. And I never slowed down. I did not slow down when I was running. I ran from one extreme to the next. So I went from being a very young mom and wife and house caretaker to the complete opposite. I went out and I started working in the bars. That's how I made my money. And those of you listening to this podcast may or may not know like the lifestyle that comes along with working with a bar, but you drink as much as you sell the drinks, So I worked, went home to my kids, partied, became friends with the people that I worked with, regulars that came into the bar. And that was my life for probably 6 solid years. And then I made a career change and really slowed down. I went from working in a bar to working in the oil and gas industry. And I worked on a vac truck. It was
What is a vac truck for people who do not live in an oil and gas town like we do?
Touche. So that truck is something that goes in and cleans up any oil field waste. You're hauling dirty fluid. You are cleaning vessels that hold this oil and gas product. You're cleaning well sites. Like, for a lack of better words, you are an oversized janitor. But it's on a semi truck. And yeah, I spent almost 2 years doing that. And the reason why I stopped is because I got pregnant with my youngest daughter, and that is not something that you can really do while being pregnant. But in the midst of working that job, I really decided that it was time to change my life around and start making more conscious decisions and slow down. Like, there comes a point in time in your life where the circle that you keep and the things you do to pass your time just aren't worth it anymore. So, and the way that I justified going out and partying and drinking and just going on stupid in my 20s was, it's okay because my kids are taken care of. Like, you know what I mean? I was still mom. We went to the park. We went to movies. We played. Like, we did all the normal stuff that I still do with them now today. Nothing changed. Nothing skipped a beat. But it didn't matter because it still wasn't healthy for me. So then when I slowed down and started cutting all those people out of my life and those habits out of my life, I don't know. Have you ever heard of like a dark night of the soul?
Yes.
Yeah, so I started going through one of those. And I started to really reflect on my life and where I was, and I don't know how to explain it besides just like everything changed, and I really did a 180, and I started to go back to the person that I was when I was a child. I've always been a fucking little freak about herbs and nature, and it can heal you, and you have to be one with the environment, and oh my god, there's a baby bird with a broken wing, I need to bring it home and nurse it back to health. Like, I've always been that girl. And the longer I stayed away from the toxic lifestyle that I was leading, it was like a breath of fresh air, and that was all starting to come back to me. I was starting to home make again and bake all the time, crochet, all this crap that I used to do when I was younger now. And it
kind of sounds like you stopped running and you were able to stop and introspect and kind of come back to yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did after a 10-year almost escapade. So yeah, that's what I was like in my 20s anyways. How were you in your 20s, Charlotte?
I was really focused on having as much fun as I could. I really had this, from when I was a teenager, I had this feeling that the good days are limited and you need to take advantage of your youth. And if you don't, you'll like deeply regret it. And I was it was almost to the point where it was like scary. Like, you have to be doing the most, otherwise you're gonna like look back and regret it forever. It was like this pressure that I put on myself, and I also was very averse to feeling tied down in any way. Kind of the opposite of where you were in that period from like 17 to 22-ish, where you were having your babies and getting married. I was the polar opposite of that. I was just basically jumping around as much as I could. I was in college, and then I took a year off of college to travel. And when I took my gap year to travel, I worked a couple of jobs at once to make as much money as possible, and then left those jobs, would go travel, blow all my money, come home, work again, and just rinse and repeat. And it was to the point where like even my parents would sometimes not know where I was, what country I was in, what my next move was going to be. And same with my friends. It was always like, where in the world is Charlotte? Who knows? And it was, at the time, it was fun, but it also was something where I knew there was an expiration date on living that way. And it felt like this goes one of two ways. Like, you either end up homeless, like a literal hobo riding the rails because you can't give up the feeling of wanting to go on to the next thing and wanting to be completely free, or you give it up and become an adult and like get a real job and start putting down roots somewhere. So I always had that tension. And I also, through traveling, I started to work on farms because it was a cheaper way to go explore a new area. I could stay on a farm for free in exchange for work, and that allowed me to travel because I didn't have that much money. And as I was doing that, I started to be exposed to people who were really creating beautiful places and creating places that more transient folks wanted to move through and wanted to gather in. So I started to get a glimpse of like, okay, someday I want to be the place that's a gathering point for people who are moving through. And it was this very, very far away glimmer of like, maybe someday I could have a home, I could have some land, I could create a place where people who aren't sure of what they need from life, or maybe they're hurting or they're just in flux, they can come through and find a place to rest and gather and heal and be rejuvenated. I kind of started to feel like, okay, that's something I can focus on. So I went back to school, I finished my degree, but still, like, I had this really intense feeling of like, do not get stuck, do not get settled down, like, do not get in a rut. It was all the time I had to be doing something, planning my next trip, planning my next move, planning my next job.
You kept yourself so busy.
Very busy. And it was the same with relationships. I'm a serial monogamist, and like, for better or worse, I was always in a relationship with somebody or other. And again, I was not focused on building long-term friendships. I was not focused on building a long-term career. It was just a patchwork. My 20s was really a patchwork. I had so many different addresses and jobs and short friendships. And honestly, I look back at it and I was like, wow, you were a mess. Like, you were a disaster. You really just needed to chill the fuck out. Like, it was okay. And then I had my first baby at 27, and that forced me to stop the ride. I was traveling at the time. I was traveling in the UK with my partner at the time, who I had met while traveling in the US. And so it was this decision of, well, what are you going to do? Is this when you settle down and stop? And the person that I was with was also kind of addicted to traveling and that lifestyle. And so both of us thought very naively, well, we can have a baby and not stop traveling and not settle down. Like, we don't have to stop the ride just yet. So we thought we were going to have this baby and keep traveling around.
Keep traveling the world
with her and be like one of those
gypsy families,
world traveling families. And so we literally, we had the baby in England, and then when she was about 3 months old, we set out from the front door with backpacks on and the baby strapped to, I had her on my front and my big backpack on my back, and our whole lives were in our backpacks, and we thought we were good to go. And it was about, we were traveling for about 6 months before it stopped. Well, it just really wasn't fun anymore. It was incredibly stressful. Having a baby
that sounds exhausting.
On the road, it was exhausting. I was breastfeeding her, and so the level of exhaustion was very intense. A lot of the time we would be camping, So it's just a lot. And I also realized in a very hands-on way that it's not the best way to raise a baby. Babies actually need so much stability. And I was just incredibly naive. And so we moved to the States and I got a job, and I guess in a way it was perfect, because at that time it's not that I was forced to get off the ride by any stretch. It was that I was finally ready to get off the ride, and I finally wanted to feel settled and start building that home that other people could gather in. And yeah, so I would say my 20s really ended at like age 28 when I stopped traveling consistently.
That is so spooky, because 28 is really when I went through my whole this can't happen anymore. And that's when I really made the conscious change, choice to change, So weird that we did it at the exact same age.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, because I remember feeling almost as though like I've stepped through this door and that, the 20s are done, even though I wasn't 30 yet. But I remember turning 30 and feeling like I had heard it's kind of hyped up so much of like, oh, the big 3-0, like you're turning 30. And I just remember feeling like, I feel like I turned 32 years ago. Like this isn't really a milestone birthday for me, because behaviorally and spiritually, I feel like I've already crossed that threshold. Yeah. And then the other big part of it for me is that I, on and off again throughout my 20s, kind of like what you alluded to, I had a really problematic relationship with alcohol. And I think, so I grew up in Texas and I went to the University of Texas. So it's a pretty big party school, and there's a very strong party and drinking culture there. So it was sort of just, well, you don't have a problem with drinking, you're just in college. And there was a lot of problematic behavior that was very normalized and excused because you're in college. And Austin, University of Texas is in Austin, which is also a huge party town. So the party kind of kept going because that's where I lived until I was like 27. That was my home base. So it was very easy and normalized to go out and drink too much. And it was also a very like walkable city. Like I was a 10-15 minute walk from the center of where all the bars were. So it was just very easy to have big nights out like once a week. And I definitely was never like really a habitual drinker. Like I wasn't the type to sit down and drink a 6-pack of beer every night or anything like that. But
But when you drank,
I drank too much. Like, yeah. And would be to the point where I would black out and not be like, I could not vouch for my character. Like I could not say that I was a good person sometimes when I was drinking. And I say I can't say because I don't remember. I truly don't know. So, and then thankfully that behavior really tapered off as I got more serious jobs. And part of that was I got a really serious job at a large organic farm. So, I was working so much that it wasn't feasible to drink. I had to be at the farm at like the crack of dawn every day. So that really tapered off. But it was not until age 32 that I finally said, okay, me and alcohol are breaking up for good. Like it's just really, it doesn't bring anything good to my life. And the only times I can say that I can't stand by my own character are when I've been drinking. So what purpose does that serve in my life? And I think when I was, 10 years prior, when I was say 22, if somebody had told me, you're going to go completely alcohol free, I would have been terrified of that. I'd have been like, how am I going to have fun? How am I going to celebrate? How am I going to socialize? How am I going to...
And you know what? That's so sad that society has just normalized that you need to drink to have fun.
I think the tide is turning, though. I really do. I think, well, I don't know if it's because I'm alcohol free now that I just happen to like run into it more, but I feel like it's becoming a lot more normalized to be alcohol free, to be sober. And the truth is, like, so I want to say I'm like 900 days alcohol free now, and
it's literally a big milestone, though.
Thank you. It just gets easier and easier, and it's nowhere near as difficult or scary as I had built it up to be, you know, in my 20s, where alcohol was really central to my life. Like, it was, I would go out with my coworkers after work, and that would be the gathering, was go to the bar and have after work cocktails or whatever. So that's been one of the biggest shifts for me in my 30s. And it's something that I will always like. It's something that is core to my personality now. It's something I'll always be loud and proud about, because I am super encouraging to anybody else who's just curious about their relationship with alcohol or curious about going sober, alcohol free. I am the biggest fan. It feels like a superpower now that I'm well into it.
And isn't it so nice going out and not waking up the next day hungover?
Oh my gosh.
Like, you literally just go out, have a couple mocktails, hang out with your friends, go home, wake up in the morning, and it's just a normal day.
It really feels like a superpower. It really does. I used to waste a lot of energy being hungover.
And money.
And time and money and damage relationships. For what? For what? For nothing. So I think we should I could do a whole episode on being alcohol free, because I'm pretty obsessed with it. I'm pretty passionate about it. But I just bring it up today because it is one of the biggest differences between, if you met Charlotte in her 20s versus Charlotte now, that would be a huge standout change for sure.
Yeah, but that's the same with me too. So I feel that. I get it.
I think it honestly comes back to what we spoke about in the beginning of the podcast, which is coming home to yourself and being comfortable with yourself, and understanding that maybe not everybody's gonna be your friend or want to hang out with you, and that's okay.
Or be at the same stage of life that you are.
Yep. And I think, at least for me, drinking alcohol was a way to, I thought, soothe those anxieties. I now know that it actually made me a lot more anxious. Now I can walk into any social situation and feel fine. Without alcohol. So
no, and that's just it. Like, if you don't want to drink, or you want to make a choice that's different than your friend group to like honor yourself, it's very important that you do that. I wish that is something that I had the guts to do in my 20s, to really stand on my own and make my own choices and decisions. It's not that I didn't make my own choices and decisions, because I did, but I made them out of a fear base of, well, this is what the group is doing, this is what my friends are doing. And I get it. That sounds so weak and...
Right. Well, it's funny you said that, because I was also I was reacting and making decisions out of a reaction, and it was definitely fear-based. And I remember I heard this quote when I was young of like, if you're making a decision, if you're choosing two paths, choose the path which is scariest to you, the path that's most intimidating to you. And I forget who said that. Somebody famous said it. I'm sorry, I can't remember. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt, to be honest.
Oh my God.
But I like lived by that in my 20s. Whichever thing is scarier, do the scarier thing. And I think that was probably a very well-meaning quote, but I just really took it the wrong way. Like, I don't
ran with it.
And I ran with it. I was like, I'm gonna get on a plane at age 19 and go to a country where I don't speak the language and I don't know a single soul. Like, when I decided to travel for the first time by myself, the only criteria for picking which country I went to was I wanted it to be a country where I didn't know a single person and I didn't know anybody who had ever been there. Like, I wanted it to be so scary to me.
Where was the first country
the first
that you
country
went?
I went to was Croatia, which
Oh my God,
doesn't
no way.
sound that scary now, but it's like become a very popular tourist destination. But this was back in 2011, and it was not that well known as a tourist destination at the time.
That is crazy.
I didn't even have I wasn't even traveling with like an iPhone. I didn't have an iPhone. I didn't have anything.
Those weren't. So in 2011, you were jet setting around the world.
I would not call it jet setting.
Okay, but whatever. You were still country hopping
Yes.
around the world on nice beaches
Where were you
in Croatia.
in 2011?
Having my daughter
In northern BC.
in northern BC.
And you were very much like, I'm gonna be the most trad wife that ever trad-wifed.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. I didn't
yes.
finish high school.
Yes.
I dropped out. I
You were,
raised
like,
my baby.
full
I
tilt.
took over a house.
Exactly. Yeah, we could
Yeah.
not have been in more different places. But it came
know,
from
but
the
look at us
same
now.
root of like, I am acting out of like
Fear.
a root of fear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%.
So if that's you, if you're in your 20s and you are reacting, you're making decisions out of a reaction or out of a place based in fear, just know that you can stop that bus and get off.
You can.
And you don't have to wait till your 30s to get off that bus. You can do it right now. You don't have to do that for years and years and years like we
No,
did.
but I think that it's very important that if you are doing that you sit and really take the time and look inside yourself and figure out why you have this reaction and start working on it, fix it, heal it, whatever words you want to use so that you don't continue that cycle for another 10 years like we did.
Hopefully not another decade. And hopefully not the rest of your life. And ideally, fix it before you have kids, which is something that neither of us did. So,
And it's a lot harder to deal with it when you have minis watching you.
It absolutely. So please take a lesson from us, your honorary podcast big sisters, and
Ooh, I like that.
figure your shit out before you have the kids, ideally. Although I think it's funny because sometimes, it takes having children to hold the magnifying glass up to yourself and realize like, oh, shoot.
I have stuff to work on. Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree there. I spent a lot of my 20s in denial, an absolute denial that there was anything wrong with my lifestyle. And I couldn't have been more wrong.
I was definitely in denial about the alcohol part of it for me. But the rest of it, I was more of like completely unaware of how much I was undervaluing lasting friendships, undervaluing building a cohesive career, undervaluing even my approach to school. I mean, I would say I barely graduated from college. That's actually not true. I did okay. I did well, but I definitely didn't put as much heart and focus into it as I could have, and definitely not as much as I would if I did it over again now. I just really undervalued things. I thought all you need to do right now is have fun and avoid being tied down. And that was just completely clueless.
Yeah, and then I went and tied myself down right away, right off the hop. And then I was like, yikes, no thanks.
Whoops.
Yeah, run.
Run away.
As far and as fast as you can.
Would you want to share the moment where you actually left that life?
Like I physically left?
Yeah. When did you get up and leave that life?
He worked in the oil and gas, and he would leave at the ass crack of dawn to go to work. And I packed up my kids and their stuff, put them in a little red wagon when everybody woke up, and off we went. I never went back to grab anything else. I
just put the kids in the wagon and go.
Yeah, off we went.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
And sometimes it really is as simple as that. I think it can feel impossible to change your life, and it can feel like you can't change it until you have all the steps figured out. But sometimes it is as simple, the kids in a wagon and walking out the door.
Yeah, that was it.
Yep. Strong lady.
And you know, I didn't even realize how strong that was until later in life. I just got stuck in okay, this is what I got to do now. I put my head down, got into the grind, and worked my ass off. And then that was how I fell into the cycle of, oh, I deserve to have fun.
Right. Yeah. I'm working so hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. I work 2 jobs, sometimes 3. So if I want to go out and drink and party with my friends on my downtime, I deserve that. And how toxic was that cycle?
I deserve it. Yes. I think that's so common too. Absolutely. And the funny thing is, like, because I had that as well. And for me, it was more, drinking became so rare after I had my first kid. I really rarely drank after that. And so it would be something where I would only have alcohol a few times a year. And it would be like, well, I never get to go out with my friends. I never get to let loose. So I was going out so infrequently, and I just thought, I deserve this. I never get to go out. I'm a busy mom. So I justified having a big night out and drinking. And I think that's incredibly common. But the wildest part is that now, one of the things that I did when I was first sober and learning how to be sober was, if you really look at, okay, there's the trigger, which is I want to let loose, or I want to relax, or I deserve this, I need this at the end of my long busy day. What is the actual underlying desire there? Like, what do you want to physically relax, or do you need to be stimulated? Are you looking for like social stimulation or a creative stimulation? Like, what is the actual thing that you're looking for? And for me, the funny thing was, I found that my I deserve this was literally just like something that felt a little bit novel, a little bit out of the ordinary.
Something that was just for you.
And I replaced that by just having just a little treat, which is so silly, but like having a can of Diet Coke did the exact same thing for me that like having a beer did. It felt like, it's just a little special something that is just a little pick-me-up at the end of my day. And it was as simple as that, as simple as just like having fun flavors of kombucha in my fridge. And that was truly all I needed. And I think if you are sober, just for me, just a little moment. And it was also like the ritual of it, of having a little moment to myself, getting away from my family for a minute and doing something that was just a little moment for me, is really all I needed. And so just figuring out what is it that you need. But I think also for a lot of people, the social part is huge, and feeling like, I can't be social without alcohol. And kind of like what you said earlier, it's okay to lose people, and it's okay to find yourself alone. And if all the people around you are only your friends when you guys have all had a few drinks, it's really okay to try and have no drinks and go be around those people and see if you still vibe with them. And if you don't, like, are they really the people for you? Yeah. If you can't vibe with them when you're at your 100% yourself, at your fullest, most conscious and sober capacity, then are those really your people? And it's okay for your entire group to sort of fall away, and your social life to fall away for a little bit. It's okay to do that. And then you're going to make room for the people who really are your people, who vibe with you and make you feel good without needing alcohol to click with those people.
And I honestly think that it's really important for people to go through a stage where you are alone. You find out who you are and what you need. And honestly, if you
and what you like, what you want to do.
If you can't sit alone with yourself in your own company and feel and not feel relaxed, like if you can't feel calm and secure in that, you're not going to find your people. They're not going to make you happy. You're not going to find anything that lasts. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it's very important and very healthy for you to go through that phase.
And again, especially as mothers, like I think
yes.
becoming a mother forced me to finally realize that friendships are necessary and they're not optional. Like you need other mom friends. You really do. Otherwise, this is way too difficult. And I truly was just undervaluing friendships until I became a mother. And it took a lot of learning to be able to be vulnerable and to form real friendships, not just people I go to the bar with and once we've had a few drinks, we're all laughing about who knows what. Like that wasn't a real connection. Relationship. No. It was never a real relationship. Maybe we had things in common and maybe we had a good time, but that is not the emotional sustenance that I think you really need when you're deep in the thick of it with little kids.
No, it's not.
So, well, I think that's all we've got for today, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Peyton, I love talking with you always. So I think next week we're going to talk about... Actually, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Do you know?
I don't know. No, I don't remember.
We'll figure it out. Quick update on Gladys, actually. Peyton doubled her sourdough starter Gladys and gave me some, so maybe next week we'll hear about our sourdough. Yeah, I'll try and make something with Peyton's beautiful sourdough starter, and we'll see how it goes.
Thanks for following along and listening tonight. We are not going to be able to maintain the release date of every Sunday. Now, with that being said, we're just going to pivot a little bit to every other Sunday, just to make sure that we can stay consistent. We'll be releasing the next episode of this podcast on May 3rd.
All right, we'll see you next time. Whatever season you're in, we're glad you're here. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Your support really helps us grow the podcast. Thanks, and see you next week. Love you. Thank you.